when he saw his picture, he was thrilled. This picture will be worshipped in every home in the future. And of course, when he saw Holy Mother worshipping his own picture, he also did that. It's, you cannot separate the principle from the person. He took both the principle as well as the person. Sri Ramakrishna as a person and Sri Ramakrishna as an impersonal, the principle. So we have two aspects of Sri Ramakrishna, which are not just aspects of himself, but they are universal aspects of reality. So Sri Ramakrishna is the reality personalized for the sake of devotees and every one of us. And there is an impersonal side of Ramakrishna which is actually also integral in all of us. Yes, you must not think that Sri Ramakrishna is there. The Ramakrishna principle is there in all of us. And in a way, we have to, since we are embodied with that principle, we have to manifest that principle in our own personal way. That is spiritual practice. And at the heart of spiritual practices is the yoga. So, one of the words Swami Vivekananda uses, nirodhana, control, which is mind perfectly still. So his mind during that state, and he says, this is a high state of yoga. This will be worshipped in every home. Then he says it's a high state of yoga. So that principle of yoga, which is you are speaking about, is actually in all of us. So we are yogis. Yeah. We must not think ourselves as we are separate and yoga is separate. That's the mistake a lot of people teaching yoga are doing. You already embody that principle. Okay? That. Secondly, there's so much going on, studies about consciousness. Consciousness. The psychologists are studying consciousness. The neurologists are studying consciousness. The physicists are puzzled with consciousness. What is consciousness? Swami Vivekananda says, science is a search for truth in the external world. Religion is a search for truth in the internal world. And then he says further, ultimately there is no internal and external in nature. Both these will coalesce. Well, good for that. So, in the ancient, you can say, practitioners of yoga, they were scientists of the internal world. And their search also was a search for consciousness, because consciousness is a principle that unifies not only you, me, but all phenomena, everything around. All the trees and plants and birds and animals and everything are unified in consciousness. If we can get this, then the sayings of the yogis, there is no knowledge like the Samkhya. There is no power like yoga. Makes sense. Now, the whole of this yoga philosophy was based on an earlier system of philosophy, one of the earliest, called the Samkhya philosophy. It's a philosophy of enumerations. It dissects, trisects, etc., and then unifies them. It studied nature, and it showed that nature works on the principle of evolution. Everything evolves. Everything. I don't know why there are some people who rail against evolution. It is a fact. So when we practice yoga, why do we do that? Oh, for health and wealth and those are spin-offs. Don't bother about them. What you are doing is evolving your individual consciousness so that it gets in touch with the universal consciousness, the principle. So there's another principle of yoga is you represent the entirety of nature in a microcosmic form. It's as simple as that. The entirety of nature is here. This is the greatest mystery. The microcosm and the macrocosm are built on the same plan. Exactly on the same plan. So here we have the first principle is the principle of evolution. That's what yoga teaches. It's a practice of expanding the mind gradually, slowly. Every time you practice. What's right about that? Yeah, fire and iron are two separate things. But when they are brought together, you have something called a red hot iron ball. The iron, I can burn things down. Well, no, you can't. So consciousness is associated with all phenomena. And the closest you can reach into is this inner self of yours, which has this, the mind, intelligence, and the sense of individuality and all the memory. So it is here you'll have to search for consciousness to expand it. Okay, I think this is kind of clear. So this is yoga. So but what do I do? Can't I do a headstand or a kind of a corpse stand or lie down like a corpse on the same page as me to understand this grand science? But in a way, I am also happy for the people here in America that they have taken this up and integrated it into the culture. It was always on the fringes. It was never. There's some queer guys with kind of doing some stupid stuff. It's written in your genes. The entirety. Suppose we all perish because there's something happens. Okay, I'm not a doomsday prophet. But if there's one DNA, we can build the entire, not only human race, the entire creation from that. So this secret, you are already having the code of life for this entire world. That's what I'm talking about. The microcosm and the macrocosm are built on the same plan. So you have the entirety of this whole nature there within you. How do I uncover all this? There are two ways. One is through tremendous concentration. When the mind is kind of focused at a point, it loses its identity, as it were. That's a phenomenon that the ancient yogis, they have kind of discovered. Yeah, this is what it is. That's a whole. Now, to get into this ultra concentration, it needs a lot of practice. Because our minds, our consciousness now is just externalized. We have divided our consciousness into, sometimes I have a tummy ache, and somebody comes, would you like a cookie?